I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is a really nice antique chest of drawers, a bow front chest of drawers. Looks like cherry. The drawer fronts are veneered with cherry veneer. And it's basically in sound condition. I mean, it's standing here fine. But obviously, in storage, it's gotten a lot of damage. It looks like water damage down here. There's a beading around the drawers, and that beading is missing in places. It's loose in places. And down here, you can see this half-round molding is coming out, and it's broken and missing. This side here has the most damage. It looks like a lot of water hit this. Maybe this thing sat in water, I don't know. There's an old repair here that's come loose. This board's moving around. And on the bottom, you can see there's a tremendous amount of damage. And damage to the finish, too. Well, we'll start by taking the drawers out. This drawer seems nice and sturdy. It's missing a piece of the bead molding right here. And you can see the dovetails. They're real nice, though, real old-style dovetails, front and back. The bottom's all hand-planed, solid wood. The drawer sides are thick. It makes for a pretty sturdy drawer. Boy, this bottom drawer is particularly bad. The water must have really dripped on the bottom, or maybe it was in a flood or something. You can see how bad the hardware is, but the veneer is rippling, and then this piece of beading obviously is sprung. Perfect. I'm going to start with the loose veneer. There's an area here that's very uneven, but the veneer is not loose. I think maybe in a flood or something, this must have swelled up and then went back down again, and it may stay uneven. I think what I'm going to do is work hot hide glue into these cracks as much as I can, all along here, and then clamp them down. So for a caul, I have a piece of hardboard, like masonite, covered with packing tape, and a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, not bending plywood, regular plywood. This is a damaged area here. It's missing some veneer. It's awfully small for a patch, but it's too big for putty. I think I'm going to try to make a little patch. And I've got some cherry veneer here, so I'll try to pick out something where the grain matches. This area is a little messed up here, but I think there may be the wood is there, I think. But I don't want to make my patch too big. I'm going to limit it to this area. I'm going to try to straighten out these ragged edges and then see if I can cut that patch. Okay, it's a little big, which is good. I think I'm going to try to make this line a little better. Open it up a little bit. Alright, I'm going to use the same clamping technique I used on the other drawer. There's a lot of unevenness in this area, and I'm just going to try to work hide glue into all these cracks everywhere I can and clamp it down. You can see I've marked off the spot where that patch is. So I'm anxious to see how this clamping job came out. I think maybe it's a little flatter. I know it's a little flatter. Still, there's a indentation along here. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, this area is nice and flat. Now this end has all these cracks in the veneer too, all along here. I'm going to do the same technique. It's funny, there's all these cracks yet percussing doesn't reveal any looseness. Here's some that's definitely raised up. I bet I could stick a knife in there. So I'll just do the same to this side as I did this side. I'll work glue into all these cracks as best I can. I can get under there and clamp it down. came out well. The whole area, now, maybe my imagination, I think it's a little more even, but there's still a dip there. This all flattened out nicely. Not bad. This area is still a little uneven, but it's going to have to work. I found a couple more loose places on this drawer front. It might seem like a lot of clamps for just a little split like that, but I've got to force this piece of plywood to curve with the top here. Alright, now we can address the issue of the bead molding. When I first saw these bead moldings, I assumed that they'd been cut at a curve or something, but looking at this, and looking at the grain here, this is a straight piece of wood, and then they just bent it into position and nailed it with all these nails. I've discovered a whole area of loose veneer right here on the edge. Couldn't really see it before with the molding in place. I may end up removing this entire, in fact I think I will remove this entire piece of molding because the veneer may be loose all the way down here. Yeah, it's loose all along here, which makes sense. A lot of water hit this part of the cabinet. Well, with clamps all over the drawers, now we can figure out what's going on here with the case. I think I'll start by taking the back off. It looks like the original nails are gone and somebody put some big old screws in here and it didn't work very well. The side of the cabinet was never attached to the top directly. Instead there's a block of wood here which serves as a kicker, and it's screwed to the top from below, and then there what appear to be square cut nails driven this way into the side, and that's supposed to hold it together. I'm going to clamp this these sides back together where they're supposed to be, and I want to see what happens with these nails. But I think it's just pushing this block a little bit too hard. I think I'll get some clamps and apply pressure to the block and this. Alright, everything's back where it's supposed to be. And I don't, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I've got nothing to work with. There's no joint here. First thing I'm going to do is take these clamps off and see what happens. Well, I've taken the clamps off and the sides have stayed right where they're supposed to stay. The nails went back in where they're supposed to be. It's staying there. I'm going to propose that we do nothing about that. Just leave it the way it is. And when I reattach the back, I will bring these sides together again with a clamp and then nail it through here, and the back will hold this thing together. I think that's the best you can do under the circumstances. Alright, we'll get back to the case soon, and in the meantime though, I want to finish gluing down all these bead moldings. Now the last two drawers have pieces missing. So I've milled up some 1/8 inch cherry, and I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut this piece of cherry on the curve. The bottom of this piece is in really good shape. This piece had come off. Luckily it was saved. I'll glue that right back there where it belongs. Alright, now I need to make some of this molding that goes around the edge here. This is an antique square cut brad. This is the head of a huge nail. Someone's attempt to fix this cracked panel in the past. Just going to leave that alone. Yeah, look like the same nails as the original. You can see where I cut out to go around that nail and that little bit of unevenness there. Now on this side I have a piece of molding that came from the other side. But luckily it's long enough to make this patch here. Alright, I need to clean down, well, I need to clean the whole cabinet. I need to really clean down these sides where all the damage is, especially at the bottom here. I think I'll try a solution of TSP and see what that does. It looks good when it's wet, which is a good sign. I think I can still see some of those lightish marks, you know, the drips and specks there. Well, we'll let this dry and see what it looks like. Well, it definitely doesn't look as good as it did when it was wet. Let me try sanding this a little bit, just with some 220, and see if it gets rid of these marks. I'll wipe it off with a little alcohol, just so it'll dry fast. Once again, when it was wet, you know, it looked great, but and then I can still see those marks. I'm going to brush a coat of shellac on this area, see what it, you know, when it dries, what it looks like. All right, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and proceed to clean the entire cabinet and the drawers, but I'm going to leave the top alone. Okay, we'll let this dry overnight and see what it looks like tomorrow. All right, everything's dried overnight. I'm ready for the next step. You can see where I really scrubbed all that darkness off. Took it right down to the bare wood. But I'm going to give all these surfaces a sanding with 150 and see how it comes out. Oh yeah, here's our little patch. See if we can get that tape off. So I started off sanding a patch like that with a block because I'm trying to keep the sandpaper just on the new wood. Trying not to hit the old wood, well, to hit it as little as possible. You know, my goal in sanding this with 150, I'm not trying to make this look like a new piece of furniture. Every single defect doesn't have to be necessarily repaired. I still want it to look old. I want to try to retain the old look. That's my goal. You can see here, this is the bottom drawer, and it's very uneven. You know, where I scrubbed it, in some places the finish came off, of course. But I'll sand this up with 150 and put some paint thinner on it and see what it looks like. These dark areas are all low spots. Remember when we started on this, this is where all the loose veneer was. And it's just not flat at all. The substrate, you know, must have swelled up and shrunk. And I'm just not going to worry about it. We're going to put some paint thinner on it right now and see what it looks like. It looks good. There's still a lot of these black spots on it. They've lightened up considerably. But I don't think those are necessarily bad. I mean, at least this doesn't look like it's been refinished, that's for sure. I don't think I had to worry about sanding it too much. Alright, it's all sanded, so I'm going to apply a coat of this Tung Oil Varnish. Boy, this color looks great. It's exceeded my expectations. This is the area, the front of this side, along with the other side, that was so black. Well, the drawers came out the same color and they're very even, which I'm really glad to see because these two bottom drawers were really, really black, and so were the sides of the cabinet. So this looks good. We'll let it dry overnight, see what it looks like tomorrow. Well, everything dried really well overnight, which I was a little concerned about. It was like 0 degrees last night. It's tough to keep the heat up in here. It really soaked in a lot. First I'm going to put the back on the cabinet. And so I'm going to clamp this again to make sure it's together where it's supposed to be, and then I'll put the back on and that'll hold it together. And once again I'll use these reproduction cut nails. Alright, now I'm going to sand all these surfaces with 320 and then a gray pad, and then do the touch-ups. This is a medium brown walnut dye stain. I seem to be having a hard time getting the dye stain to go on evenly. I'll try a marker. Okay, this is the same Waterlock's Tung Oil Varnish, but in a satin. Okay, until tomorrow. Boy, everything looks good. You know, last night, off camera, I came in the shop and everything was still looking a little starved in places, so I brushed on a third coat. And of course, this varnish is such a low viscosity that, which is what I really like about it. It's still fine. There's still not a lot of finish on here, but it looks really good now. Now let's see what we can do about the hardware. First thing you do is check, make sure these are brass and not plated, because that would just change things a little bit. Yeah. Everything is solid brass. So I was looking on the internet. There's lots of easy do-it-yourself brass cleaning solutions, mostly involving salt and water. I'm looking forward to trying those, but in the meantime I've got brass cleaner that I just want to use up. Alright, I'll let that sit for 10 or 15 minutes. Throughout this whole process I've done nothing to the top. And the top really wasn't badly damaged. It has a few scratches in it. In fact, it looks great. It's not the original, I don't think it's the original finish. This is, I know this cabinet's been refinished at least once, if not more. This is just a commercial cleaner, degreaser I get at the hardware store. Now I'll go over it with a scratch cover using 4/0 steel wool. Scratch cover, I guess, is just an oil polish with stain in it. The idea being that it won't penetrate anywhere there's finish, but it will go into the scratches and not get rid of the scratches, but just color them. Alright, now I'm gonna let that scratch cover just soak in for a while into those scratches while I go back to the hardware. Alright, it's getting there. So I was cleaning the brass with this commercial cleaner, and it, you know, did okay, but there was a lot of darkness that I just couldn't get to. So I did mix up from the internet 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of white vinegar, and then I rinsed these off when I got them as far as I could, and I'm throwing them in here and I'm letting them sit for a little while, and that seems to really do the trick. They kind of look like this going in. There's a lot of darkness here and there I just wasn't getting to. And after sitting for a while, they come out pretty clean. Now for each drawer, I will go over it first with craft paper, brown craft paper. That really helps smooth it up. Then I'll go over it with steel wool and the orange oil polish, and I will install the hardware, and then I'll wax up the drawer runners and the drawer sides. I don't know if you noticed, but I keep the nut in these old antique screws. I keep that nut with the post that it belongs. You just don't know if it's going to work on another one or not. Now I just use an old candle here to wax everywhere where I think that wood will touch wood with the drawers. In other words, the drawer runners, and then the sides of the cabinet too. Well, there we go. This is a really nice antique bow front dresser. Maybe 18th century. It's made of cherry. In my experience, it's very unusual to see any piece of antique furniture in cherry. I've never seen a piece of antique furniture with cherry veneer like these fronts are. This was so badly damaged from here down, definitely benefited from the refinishing. You remember the molding was missing here, another molding missing over here. Both sides are cracked. I did not attempt to repair those. I left them alone, although I secured the sides. You know, the thing about the Tung Oil Varnish is that it's so mellow, and it really even further mellows out over a period of time. I'd like to think that in a couple of years, as the brass tarnishes a bit and the finish mellows out, that it really won't be apparent at all that it's been restored. It looks pretty good. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please subscribe and like, and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified when I put out a new video.